I've decided to sign for one more year on the show, and that this will be my last year.
You know that awkward feeling when someone's been all smiles in your face for years, cracking jokes, acting sweet, pretending to be humble. But deep down, something always felt off. And then one day, everything that was hidden starts spilling out for everyone to see. Now, picture that same energy multiplied by fake laughs, forced sing-alongs, Hollywood protection, and a whole lot of unchecked privilege. And you've got the story of how James Corden's downfall really started to unfold. What made this so satisfying for people online wasn't that it came out of nowhere. It was a long time coming. This wasn't about one bad clip or one awkward joke that got blown up. It was years of quiet whispers, side comments, and subtle warnings from folks who'd actually worked with him, all saying the same thing behind closed doors, that he was exhausting to deal with, dismissive, and straight up draining to be around. The internet didn't invent his bad reputation. It just turned up the volume on what had already been simmering for ages. James Corden didn't just fall from grace overnight. He tripped on his own ego, slid all the way down, and kept pointing at everyone else instead of owning up. And to really get why people didn't feel bad for him, you've got to rewind to when his name actually meant something good. Which sounds crazy now, but believe it or not, that was real back in 2007. He co-created Gavin and Stacey with Ruth Jones, and it blew up across the UK almost overnight. The show had that perfect mix of awkward charm and everyday humor that just clicked with people.
I was sitting, I can see your belly. And that was right over there at the back of the room. These people down here, you know.
Sorry, I'm waiting for the punchline. Go on. No, seriously, go on.
Okay.
No, go on. You can see my belly, and we can all see you dying right now. Let's go for it. Here we go.
James played Smithy, loud, immature, kinda annoying, but still weirdly lovable. Audiences ate it up. One minute he was barely scraping by, and the next he was everywhere. That was the moment when staying humble could have secured his place for good. But according to insiders, that humble version of James didn't stick around for long. Fame hit him fast and hard, and everyone around him saw the shift. His co-stars later hinted that the change was almost instant. Rob Brydon even had to pull him aside and tell him to calm down. Even his own sisters reportedly told him, "Don't let this turn you into someone people can't stand." And when your family is warning you before you've even hit your peak, that's not random. That's a red flag. But instead of taking it as a wake-up call, James leaned into the attitude. He tried flipping his sitcom fame into sketch shows and movies, but they tanked hard. Horn and Corden got torn apart by critics, and Lesbian Vampire Killers, yes, that was the title, became an inside joke across the industry. The reviews weren't just bad, they were brutal. But instead of learning from it, James took it personally. To him, every critique was an insult, and every flop was someone else's fault. That mindset, always defensive, never reflective, stuck with him for years. Then came 2010, the night that should have been his reality check. At the Glamour Awards, actor Patrick Stewart publicly called him out for being disengaged and unprofessional on stage. This wasn't some random internet troll. It was a respected acting legend calmly pointing out the truth. But instead of taking it like a pro, James snapped back, mocking Stewart in front of everyone like it was a joke. The whole room could feel the tension. It was awkward, uncomfortable, and telling. That moment didn't end his career, but it exposed something deep. James Corden couldn't take criticism without firing back.
People that haven't seen my belly, is there anyone who hasn't got a... It's just there. Okay, can we get a taxi ready, please? The old man going home. Okay.
Any challenge to his image felt like a personal attack, and that defensiveness became his trademark. Fast forward to 2014, and CBS made one of the strangest moves ever. They handed The Late Late Show to James Corden right after Craig Ferguson left. Most Americans didn't even know who he was. Expectations were rock bottom, confusion was high. But CBS had a surprise up their sleeve, a secret weapon that was about to flip everything upside down. Carpool Karaoke. It sounded goofy at first, but it hit like lightning. Watching celebrities sing off-key while stuck in traffic turned out to be pure gold. When names like Adele, Paul McCartney, and Lady Gaga showed up, the clips went viral instantly. Billions of views later, James Corden was everywhere. Hosting award shows, landing movie cameos, Broadway roles, voice acting gigs, his rise was fast and flashy. The public image was squeaky clean. The charming British guy who just wanted everyone smiling. A perfect fit for the glossy, ad-friendly TV era. But while viewers saw a lovable goof, the people behind the scenes were seeing something very different. Crew members started whispering about how he really acted when the cameras stopped rolling. Writers noticed sudden mood shifts. Staff picked up on the way he spoke to people who didn't have power or fame. Then came that moment, the one that cracked the illusion wide open. During a game on Jimmy Kimmel Live, James was asked to name 2 of his own camera operators, the same people he worked with every single day. He froze. Not a single name came out. The silence in that room said everything. Kimmel tried to lighten the mood, but the air was thick with secondhand embarrassment. That pause was louder than any punchline. It wasn't about forgetting names. It was about showing how little attention he gave to the people behind him. After that, the cracks started spreading fast. In 2017, right after the shocking industry scandal involving Weinstein went public,
for whatever it's worth, I like your belly, so. But I would pay to see Sir Patrick Stewart dying on stage any day, so.
James made the mistake of turning it into a punchline at an event. The reaction? Ice cold. The room didn't laugh, and the internet wasn't having it either. It came off tone-deaf and disconnected, like he didn't understand the weight of what was happening. Rose McGowan publicly called him out, echoing what insiders had been whispering for years, that James seemed self-focused and out of touch. That hit differently because it came from someone close to the situation, not just another critic online. But instead of reading the room, James made his next big mistake. He hosted a Reddit AMA. What was supposed to be a fun, casual fan chat turned into a live reputation meltdown. The thread filled up instantly, not with laughs or questions, but with first-hand stories from people claiming to have worked with him, each one painting the same picture. Waiters, crew members, assistants, writers, even random people who'd crossed paths with him, all started describing James the exact same way. Dismissive, rude, entitled, and completely unaware of how his actions hit those around him. One comment summed it up perfectly, calling him a massively entitled nightmare. James only answered a few safe questions on that Reddit thread before vanishing completely. But by then, the damage was done. The conversation had officially shifted. People weren't wondering if he was difficult anymore. They were asking how this kind of behavior had been allowed to slide for so long.
Has been weird this week though, hasn't it? Watching Harvey Weinstein in hot water. Ask any of the women who watched him take a bath. It's weird watching Harvey Weinstein in hot water. Harvey Weinstein wanted to come tonight, but he'll settle for whatever potted plant is closest.
That moment became the real turning point. There wasn't one huge scandal to blame anymore. It was a slow-motion collapse, built from years of similar stories piling up until the picture was way too clear to ignore. And if you want to understand the final blow to his public image, you have to talk about Cats. That movie wasn't just a flop. It became a full-blown cultural punchline. James played Bustopher Jones, a CGI cat with creepy human features that unsettled everyone before he even said a word. Critics shredded it, audiences walked out mid-screening, and the internet turned it into meme fuel overnight. It was Hollywood excess at its absolute worst. But instead of facing it head-on or poking fun at himself, James did what had become his trademark move. He distanced himself completely. He later admitted he never even watched the final cut. Imagine that. Being so embarrassed by your own project that you can't bring yourself to see it, yet still expecting people to take you seriously as a performer. That moment didn't just hurt his reputation, it cemented it. After Cats turned into a meme-fueled disaster, the shine around James Corden began to fade fast. But instead of taking that moment to rebuild or reflect, he doubled down on the same behavior that had people rolling their eyes for years. This was when the mask really started slipping. Not through one major headline, but through small, repeated moments that showed the same pattern again and again. Behind the scenes at the Late Late Show, former staff members began hinting that the happy-go-lucky James people saw on TV wasn't the same person they worked with off-camera. Multiple accounts surfaced describing him as dismissive toward crew and impatient with staff.
Right here in LA, it's so beautiful. Harvey Weinstein has already asked tonight up to his hotel to give him a massage. I don't know whether that groan was that you like that joke or you don't like that joke. If you don't like that joke, you should probably leave now.
Some even said he'd switch moods in an instant. Warm and charming if a big-name guest was around, then cold or short-tempered once the cameras stopped rolling. What really pushed things over the edge was when stories started escaping that bubble. It wasn't tabloids exaggerating, it was real people, waiters, restaurant staff, and everyday workers, all saying the same thing. The most infamous example came from a New York restaurant where James reportedly lashed out at servers over a simple order issue. The manager claimed James was so harsh that he ended up banning him from the place entirely. That ban went public fast, and suddenly James Corden's name was trending again, but not because of a funny sketch or viral moment. This time, it was because people were calling him Hollywood's rudest customer. Instead of staying quiet, James tried to fix the situation on air. He addressed it on the Late Late Show and said he hadn't done anything wrong, but then backtracked slightly, claiming he didn't mean to hurt anyone. The apology felt half-hearted to viewers. Some saw it as damage control, not sincerity. The restaurant owner later said James called privately to apologize. But by then, the public's patience was long gone. The internet doesn't forget, and clips of that apology were picked apart frame by frame as people debated whether he really meant it or was just trying to protect his brand. And honestly, that moment summed up what had become James Corden's entire problem. His charm had worn thin because it started to feel performative, like he only cared when cameras were watching.
Most difficult and obnoxious presenter I've ever worked with is James Corden. I went along to L Street and I sat in the darkness and kind of watched James on the set of League of Their Own rehearse. No audience, no other panel members, just him on his own. And he came to a point where he had to read from a card, and he had a card up like that, and he was reading from it, and it was kind of a joke in there, and he kind of just like, I remember, he just looked at it like, that's not funny, what? He was like, that's shit, we have to rewrite that, we have to rewrite this. And I don't know, maybe he was having a bad day, I thought, and the writing's just not been up to scratch, but I definitely thought, man, you know, somebody wrote that. Not nice.
That funny British guy next door persona had been stretched too far and no one was buying it anymore. People weren't laughing with him, they were laughing at him. Around this time, several stories resurfaced from past award shows and press junkets. Awkward, unflattering moments that painted the same picture. During one event, he reportedly made a joke about an audience member's outfit that didn't land well. At another, he interrupted another celebrity's speech with an improv bit that many thought was disrespectful. Even his interactions with fans started getting attention, some saying he'd refuse photos or act irritated when recognized in public. All of this created a snowball effect. What used to be shrugged off as, oh, that's just James being James, was now seen as arrogance. The same charm that once made him a star was now working against him. People began pulling old clips from his interviews, dissecting his tone and expressions, pointing out moments where he talked over guests or made jokes at their expense. Suddenly, the internet was flooded with compilation videos titled things like James Corden being rude for 10 minutes straight. Each one got millions of views. That's when his once golden image officially flipped. Late-night viewers began tuning out. Social media users started referring to him as fake nice. Every new headline about James, whether true or exaggerated, was met with sarcasm and mockery. Even fellow comedians began throwing light jabs about how James Corden energy had become a running joke in the entertainment world. But the real breaking point came when he announced he'd be stepping down from the Late Late Show. Normally, a move like that sparks nostalgia and respect. But with James, the reaction was split right down the middle. Some fans said they'd miss the musical skits and Carpool Karaoke segments, but many others openly celebrated the news. Tweets flooded in saying things like, "It's about time," or "America can finally rest." That alone showed how drastically public perception had shifted. Still, the exit wasn't the clean, graceful handoff CBS probably hoped for. Rumors swirled about tension behind the scenes, creative clashes, burnout, and strained relationships with the team. People close to the show hinted that morale had been low for a while, and some described the environment as tense but polite. It wasn't chaos, but it definitely wasn't cheerful either. Then, in the final months before his departure, things took another odd turn. There were reports that some Carpool Karaoke segments weren't even real, claims that parts of the show were pre-recorded, or that cars were being towed while James pretended to drive. When behind-the-scenes footage leaked confirming that the vehicle was sometimes pulled on a trailer for safety reasons, fans freaked out. For years, audiences had believed those moments were spontaneous and real. Even though it wasn't actually a scandal, it felt like another small betrayal, a reminder that the charm was more illusion than authenticity. When James officially said goodbye to The Late Late Show, the energy was strange. The farewell episode felt polished but cold. There were emotional speeches, celebrity appearances, and tearful thank yous. But the public's response online was detached. Instead of tears, people cracked jokes. Instead of sympathy, there was indifference. The man who once ruled viral culture was now trending mostly as a punchline. What made it sting more was how avoidable it all seemed. His fall wasn't about one mistake. It was about refusing to grow. Instead of learning from criticism, he brushed it off. Instead of listening to the people around him, he doubled down on ego. Fame doesn't erase humanity, but it can expose it. And James Corden became the perfect example of how charm without humility turns sour over time. Even after leaving TV, he tried pivoting back to acting and production. But the same online skepticism followed him everywhere. Whenever a new project with his name appeared, the comment sections filled up before the trailers even dropped. The audience's trust had evaporated. What was once applause had turned into eye rolls. At the end of the day, James Corden's story isn't about instant downfall. It's about slow, steady unraveling. It's the tale of someone who mistook likability for invincibility, forgetting that audiences always sense what's real and what's not. And in today's world, once that illusion cracks, even just a little, it's nearly impossible to patch it back together again. After the curtain closed on The Late Late Show, James Corden vanished from screens for a while. But the silence didn't heal his image. It made people talk even more. Fans wondered if he'd finally take time to reflect, or if this was just another calculated move before his next big rebrand. And sure enough, not long after, reports surfaced that he had relocated back to London, saying he wanted to focus on family and a simpler life. But few believed that was the full story. Because by this point, James wasn't just dealing with bad headlines, he was dealing with something far worse: reputation fatigue. People were simply over it. The public's patience for his on-screen charm had run out, and the entertainment world had already moved on. Other late-night hosts filled the void with fresh energy, and streaming platforms had shifted the entire landscape. James, once everywhere, was suddenly nowhere. Behind the scenes, it was clear that rebuilding his brand would take more than another talk show or flashy project. The same behaviors that haunted him in Hollywood couldn't just be left behind in Los Angeles. In London, reports emerged that producers were cautious about working with him. Some studios wanted to wait and see before tying their names to his comeback. It was polite industry talk, but everyone knew what that meant. James tried dipping back into acting, hoping to remind audiences of his roots, but the reaction was lukewarm. Fans didn't trust the nice guy act anymore. Even when he appeared sincere, people side-eyed it, waiting for the mask to slip again. Interviews that once went viral for humor now trended because of awkward tension or forced jokes. He couldn't escape the perception that everything he said was scripted for damage control. There was one particular interview that made waves. He broke down talking about the pressure of fame, saying it had taken a toll on his mental health. Some people sympathized, acknowledging that fame can twist anyone's reality. But others called it performative, claiming he was trying to guilt-trip the public into forgiving him. That split reaction summed up where James stood, a man who had lost the benefit of the doubt. It didn't help that stories from his Late Late Show years kept resurfacing online. Old crew members opened up about how exhausting the production environment could be. Some mentioned that James would occasionally explode over tiny mistakes or ignore staff unless they were high-ranking executives. These were not new claims, but in the absence of new work or positive headlines, they became the only stories people were hearing about him. Then came another viral storm. Fans started compiling clips of him retelling jokes that sounded suspiciously similar to bits from other comedians. The internet labeled it recycled humor, and whether or not it was intentional, the optics were terrible. For someone already branded as fake and performative, this added another layer of skepticism. The memes came fast, and every clip was dissected frame by frame. It was clear James had lost control of the narrative. Every public appearance, every quote, every video was filtered through the lens of, can we trust this guy? And when audiences start watching you that way, it's nearly impossible to win them back. But here's the twist. Some industry insiders say he's quietly been trying to rebuild, not through PR stunts, but through smaller, humbler projects. Word spread that he was exploring behind-the-scenes work, producing, writing, developing stage plays, and for the first time in years, staying out of the spotlight. Some say this version of James is calmer, less reactive, more aware of how much his reputation cost him. Whether that's genuine growth or strategic reinvention is anyone's guess. But the difference feels real enough to notice. Meanwhile, online, people still debate his legacy. Some argue that his downfall was exaggerated by the internet's obsession with tearing down famous people. Others insist the criticism was earned through years of behavior finally catching up. Whichever side you take, one thing's undeniable. James Corden went from being one of the most liked men in entertainment to one of the most polarizing. The real question now is whether he'll ever make a full comeback. Hollywood loves a redemption arc, but only when it feels authentic. If James truly wants that second chance, it won't come from big stages or viral sketches. It'll come from showing real humility, from doing the work quietly and consistently without trying to prove anything. Because after all the chaos, all the ego, and all the forced smiles, that might be the only thing left that could surprise people. Being genuine. That moment didn't destroy his career completely, but it confirmed a pattern everyone had been seeing for years. James thrived on attention when things went his way, but the second things got messy, he vanished. Then came the prom, and this one hurt his reputation in a whole new way. James, a straight actor, took on the role of a flamboyant gay character, and the performance felt like a throwback no one asked for. It leaned into old cliches that audiences had long outgrown, and people noticed immediately. Younger viewers called it awkward and disconnected, critics labeled it tone-deaf, and LGBTQ+ audiences said it felt mocking rather than supportive. Instead of taking that feedback seriously, James doubled down, brushing off the criticism as people being too sensitive. But that reaction? It was the same playbook he'd used for years. Once again, no humility, no reflection, no empathy, and people were done giving him the benefit of the doubt. But the moment that truly locked his reputation for good didn't happen on a film set or a red carpet. It happened in a restaurant. In 2022, the owner of Balthazar in New York publicly banned James from the place, calling him the most abusive customer his staff had dealt with in over 20 years. This wasn't some vague rumor whispered online. This was public, detailed, and came straight from someone who had nothing to gain by speaking up. That was the moment people stopped saying, maybe he's just misunderstood, and started saying, okay, this is who he really is. When the backlash exploded, James went into PR mode again. He addressed it on his show, using calm words and a careful tone, claiming it was all a misunderstanding. He said he wanted more family time and was looking forward to a fresh chapter away from the spotlight. But let's be honest, that sounded more like a convenient exit strategy than a heartfelt goodbye. When the public goodwill is gone, family time suddenly becomes the go-to line for retreat. When James Corden's final episode of The Late Late Show aired, it looked polished on the surface, celebrity guests, smiles, and nostalgia everywhere. But underneath that glitter, you could feel the relief. Not sadness, not emotion, just relief. It wasn't a room mourning a legacy. It was a crew, a network, and an audience collectively exhaling, saying, finally, it's over. And the most brutal sign of all came after the finale. CBS didn't replace him. They didn't look for a new host. They didn't rework the show. They didn't even try to keep the time slot alive. They just ended it completely. In Hollywood, that's the coldest message you can get. When a network decides your entire format isn't worth saving, it means your name isn't a brand anymore. It's baggage. So why did this downfall feel so satisfying to so many people? Because it wasn't random, it wasn't cruel, it wasn't exaggerated. It was the natural end of a story that had been building for years. Everyone has met a person like this before. The fake nice coworker, the boss who acts sweet in public but explodes in private, the one who takes credit for success but disappears when things fall apart. James Corden didn't lose his career because people were out to get him. He lost it because the mask finally slipped. And once people saw the real person behind that polished grin, no one wanted to play along anymore. This wasn't tragedy. This was overdue accountability. It arrived late, but right on time. So what do you think? Was James Corden unfairly judged? Or was this downfall completely deserved? Let me know your thoughts down below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment. And I'll see you on the next one.